was living a lie. In the darkness, I was scared of the light. With no direction, I was running away. Step by side, enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride.
A lot of questions came up from your role play as to, how do you facilitate a couple through this? And I want to play this because it kind of gives you an example of how at least it can be done. If you kind of really notice how the facilitator navigates through this discussion. So let's
take a look now at the 10 steps for resolving couple conflict. The first 3 steps are 1. Set a time and place for discussion. 2. Define the problem and be specific.
That sounds familiar. Set a time and place, right? So it's not by sabotage. Important deal. Define the problem. What are you going to talk about? You got to be both agreeing to tackle it, So.
And step 3. List the ways you each contribute to the problem.
That's a helpful one. If you can actually get that down on paper, that's one way to really let the guards down, and
In this next segment, Dr. Olson meets with Daniel and Maria, giving us a chance to see step 4, 5, and 6 in practice. Those steps are 4. List past attempts to resolve the issue that were not successful. 5. Brainstorm. And 6. Discuss and evaluate each of these possible solutions. These are commonly the most difficult steps for couples to complete. Let's take a look.
What have you done in the past to talk about this or to try to deal with this, and what's happened?
Well, we haven't talked about it.
Okay, so you're avoiding it, yeah, which is...
Yeah. It's come up, and we've looked at various places online, but we sort of just, I guess we just argue, and it goes unresolved, and it's like we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
I mean, at least that's how I remember it.
Yeah. We just have a hard time.
Yeah. One of the nice things about this exercise is that it uses a technique called brainstorming.
Okay.
Where you probably heard of it. It's used in business and in a lot of situations where you just kind of throw out ideas and try to come up with something that's different that you haven't tried before. And you don't judge each other's ideas, but the goal here is to come up with 10 ideas, and they can be silly things, but that might help kind of stimulate an idea or some new approach to dealing with this problem. So just kind of brainstorm with each other and then write the ideas down, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Ready, set, go. Well,
okay, so we could either move in with you.
Right.
Both of us move in. So that's one idea.
And
or both move in with me.
Right. So those are 2 ideas,
yes.
okay?
We could...
I'll take the minutes.
Take the notes.
Yeah.
We could move into a place in the city that's not where you live.
Right, so apartment.
Or a condo.
Or a condo.
Yeah.
Might be nice to buy.
Right, condo. We could move in with your parents.
Move in with
That's
my
good.
parents.
That's good.
That's an option.
Right. We can continue living apart.
That is an option. The 3 of us with Katie, my roommate.
Right.
The 3 of us could live together.
Where?
I guess, is that the same?
Would that be at your place?
Is that the same?
Is living with Katie at your house different than living without Katie at your house?
I don't know if those are 2 separate ideas.
Yeah.
We could get, there could be a different, we could move to a different house.
We'll get a motorhome. There we go.
Oh, there's an idea.
Yeah. This is good. I mean, you can
Okay.
think of creative ideas.
But
Get a. Go ahead.
Okay, we could get a different house that's between where you and I live.
Right. So, house in between suburbs,
Suburbs.
but house
Closer to downtown.
house
Yeah.
in city. I mean, that's hard to find, but house in city,
Yeah.
which exists. We could find. Okay, we already have that one. I mean, that's 8. We have 2 more spots.
10. We need 10.
We need
Right.
10.
It's tough.
It is tough.
I don't know. I feel like we're out of steam. I guess we could, we could sublet a place from my friend Randy, who has like this huge loft that I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know.
We could do that until we come up with something.
Or something permanent, maybe
Yeah.
sublet.
Until we come up with a decision.
Or we could we could sleep on people's couches.
Oh, there's an option. Okay. We've got
You could
10.
be home. Good.
We could be.
That's good.
We could be homeless. There we
Yeah.
go. That's the 11th one right there. Homeless. Box on corner.
Walk through these and talk about some of the pros and cons and either eliminate it or keep it as an option, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
What was the first one?
First one was move in with me.
Okay. It's not that I don't like that as an option. I like your place a lot. I just don't see that as a place to settle down and start a family.
Okay.
But we could leave it as an option because it's not the worst of the
Yeah.
ones that we came up with.
Okay, so that could be an
You can
Yeah.
circle
option.
that. That's one option.
Okay. Then there's moving in with you. With or without Katie.
I would think that it would probably be without her.
Without, so you'd kick her out.
Well, I just think probably once we're married, we shouldn't have a roommate.
I guess it's an option.
Okay.
We can get,
Well, if you don't want that to be an option, though, it doesn't have to be an option.
but it's something that exists, I guess. So it's an easier choice than something new.
Okay.
I don't know. There's apartment or condo in the city, which I see is okay because it keeps me close by and potentially you close by if you happen to find a job in the city. But we don't know.
Okay.
Um,
The only problem with that as the most immediate answer to our problem is that I won't be graduating for a while.
right.
And so I probably won't have the money to buy an apartment or a condo right off the bat.
Right.
So that might not be,
Okay.
I mean, unless, yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
that's okay. Sublet? No?
No.
Okay. Yeah. And then people's couches, maybe 5 years ago. Homeless? A lot of freedom.
No, well,
Fresh air?
no.
Okay. No.
So you're down to basically looking at your 2 places.
Or
So
a
is it-
third option that's kind of in between the two.
In
Yeah.
between, yeah. Now, one thing that we didn't differentiate is we could rent closer by or we can buy. Now, couldn't you could rent your house, you wouldn't have to get rid of it. So you could have that as a source of income for yourself while you were living somewhere else.
That's very true.
I mean, I don't know how much of that you've thought about, but
I haven't, but that is true.
so
Now, you don't have to make a decision now, but
Oh,
you know what's good is that you two are able to talk in a very rational way about this, and you explored a lot of options, and you narrowed it down.
right.
And what you didn't do is you didn't avoid it. You're talking about it directly. What does that feel like now? You've avoided it for a long time.
Right. We've
How does
stayed
it feel now
fairly
to?
calm.
It feels definitely not as big of a problem as it did when we started.
It feels doable.
Okay.
There were things that I didn't even think about, that I didn't even think of
Right.
as options. I mean, not the ones that really made no sense, like
Yeah.
a motorhome, but like renting out my house didn't even cross my mind before
Yeah.
this. So that was,
We I guess we never sat down to make a list.
Okay.
You know, it's always been floating around in our heads, and you know, just in
makes much more
conversation.
sense.
But
And you know, that's what a lot of these exercises do. They make you sit down and do concrete, simple things that, you know, anybody can do.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so that's kind of the magic of it.
it's like
Is
being in
that-
elementary school again.
Yeah,
But
yeah. It simplifies
But it makes it, yeah, it makes it easier.
right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Good. What you need to learn from this is that you shouldn't avoid conflict, and you can actually sit down and talk through it quite rationally, and I really like the process that you used, and both
Yeah.
of you got involved. I like the fact that you were much more involved in this than you have been in other things.
Right.
So those are all good things.
Yeah.
And those are things to remember to continue to do. Okay.
Sure.
So this illustrates something about process. You guys notice anything about where they started to where they got to? And because they went through the process, things changed, right? What did you notice? What happened as a result of this process?
I love the fact that instead of having two absolutely polar opposites, when you have a universe that's much bigger, those two things are a lot closer together than couch surfing and buying a Winnebago.
Yeah.
So when the whole point is that they commented on the fact that they hadn't actually ever had a conversation about something that was obviously quite uncomfortable, because if it was easy to talk about, they would have talked about it. So this process is probably a model of how effective it can be to kind of play with it a little bit and to be creative and funny, and then you're laughing, and then it's harder to be.
Did you notice that the last idea that came up only appeared at the end of the process?
Yeah. That's a good point.
It wasn't even on the radar before, and it was birthed out of this readjusting of the version of their story of this issue, right? I mean, I think your very good observation that broadening the options made the two look a lot closer together, a lot, you know, more. They both were acceptable, and you know, by the time they got halfway through, they went from, you know, unacceptable by one to both accepting that they're options. And then they looked better the more of these crazy options were put next to them. It's kind of like that parable of, you know, the farmhouse is too small, so okay, the wise man says bring the cow in, and then the chicken, and then you know, and all the animals, and then, you know, and then okay, then send them all out. Oh, the house is bigger than it ever was. It's perspective, right? A lot of times conflict resolution can be helped by a process that expands the scope of the context, right? But the other piece was to get them past the uncomfortable tension, the avoidance that caused them to avoid the issue. And so it's a good grid, and it's more involved than the straight talk sheet because it goes more into logistics. Brainstorming 10-ish options can be very hard to come up with 10, and the further you have to reach, the more crazy the options you bring in. So that's what brings the levity, right? It's like, oh, this is kind of funny. Now it's lighter, but it gives even more structure to it. I think that the straight talk sheet kind of focuses on the substance of the kind of the relational part of conflict resolution, whereas the 10 steps focuses on more the logistics of it. I think both are valuable. I've used both with couples for different stages in the discussion or different issues. Anyway, you're getting the gist of this. What they're getting a chance to do is talk about positives and negatives, which puts it in a kind of narrative that allows them to both say, what do I like about your family? What do I like about my family? What do I not want to bring forward? And so, again, it's an exercise that sorts out areas of couple agreement about what they want to continue and what they don't want. Without that conversation, what tends to happen is this: your family's bad, mine's good. In a story, right? Because anything that's going on that I don't like that your family did, then your family's the problem. Okay? Rather than your family's a resource, but we get to pick what we want to bring along. Does that make sense? So that conversation and this tool then helps. And it also, there's another clip in here that talks about what causes movement on this grid. Nobody stays in the same box. If there's a death in the family, they tend to move up towards the upper right corner. Okay, they become very flexible and very connected. It's kind of a chaotic time. Everybody's comforting each other. They're trying to get, in one place. Their normal life routine's interrupted, but they're getting together. They're really connecting just to comfort each other. And from that, then they will tend to travel down toward the more structured kind of life and then move back toward a normal. And one thing that they found in using this to track how connected and flexible people are is they've found that when a family or a couple goes through a crisis, they never end up landing in the same spot they started. So crisis changes how people do connection and structure. My dad was a Marine. We had structure in our family to the point where I was sick of structure, and when I got my choice, I didn't want any structure in my life at all. I just wanted to be free and breathe, and so I did. Over time, I had figured out that structure has a use, and there are good ways to use structure. And even to today, where I'm talking about doing, if we're doing process, the effective use of structure requires a recognition of what does structure do for us? What does it not do for us? How do we use it in a way that's going to empower people rather than disempower them, and how to use it wisely? So that's part of, for any of us that deal with process, whether you're in the legal system as an attorney, a mediator in a little less structured environment, a therapist where you have kind of an hour and a half to kind of just say, how do you feel? I mean, there's a lot of different environments where we use structure to one degree or another, and maybe we have a structure that's kind of informing us, but we're not imposing it on the people around us too. So there's all kinds of ways to use structure. So when we're working with couples to do restoration, it's kind of it's important for us to kind of learn how to effectively use that. The more highly conflicted a couple is, the more structure they need to get through a conversation. And so some of these tools like this may seem very tedious, but they also might be very necessary, because the safety level, right, the perceived safety level of that environment is not very high. Even if it's just for one of them, if they're going to participate, they're going to need structure. They're going to need to know that there's going to be boundaries observed. And when we do mediation sessions, Louisa and I, we use structure, and deciding whether or not they should be in the same room is a structure decision, right? What is going to accommodate the moving forward of this conversation and the process so that it doesn't blow up or have to end. So does that make sense? I think this whole thing of connectedness kind of leads into the drama triangle illustration. So if you got that there, pull that out a second. What this is kind of a mapping out of what some of the more toxic family relationships look like How many have seen this before or looks familiar at all? Anybody? I think that this diagram particularly helps put a picture to some of the stuff that I've seen oftentimes, unfortunately, in the name of ministry, where we can take this rescuer role and put all kinds of Bible verses around it and feel like we're doing good, you know, when actually all we're doing is stepping into the drama triangle. And one way you can tell you're in the drama triangle and not really, you know, in a healthy role is that one day you'll in the name of rescuing someone, you'll find out that you've been given a different hat than you wanted to have in this triangle. As an attorney, I'm often seen as a rescuer for people. And, you know, for what we pay you, you doggone well better rescue me. And, you know, I know as a person in a helping profession that if I play this rescuer role, I am not going to, my client is not going to be any better off when I'm done than they are now. And they're going to have to hire me again and again and again. Now, if my purpose in life is to make a lot of money, that's fine with me. I'll leave them in that perceived victim role or that perpetrator role, if it's criminal defense, right? And we'll just play the game. We'll play the cycle, and I'll make the money. I'm just being honest here. But if I'm going to choose not to do that, and rather actually empower my clients, I have to put a boundary around what the help I give them needs to be healthy, helpful help that's actually going to empower them not to stay in the drama triangle. Because the hats do change. And we see this in, you guys, you're going to have some domestic abuse training. And you're going to talk a lot about this whole trauma triangle in that context because, you know, what I've seen in family law is the often case where, you know, there'll be a domestic abuse phone call to the police, and you know, often it's the female that calls. The police are, you know, get the call, and it's like, okay, we're the rescuers, here we go. And by the time they get to the door, something's changed because unknown to the police officer, there's been a renegotiating of the hats where the guy who was beating her up says, oh, see, now look what you've done. They're going to come and put me in jail, and I'm going to be the victim now, and it'll be your fault. Right? Right? And so what does the victim do? Oh, yeah, man, and then you won't be here, and I won't get a child support check, and gee, maybe we should switch the hats around. I know. Because then I can be your rescuer, and you can be the victim, and who do the police get to be? They're the perpetrators all of a sudden. And they come to the door, and they're being treated like the ones who are, you know, trying to, you know, assault somebody here. You know, and the woman's at the door, oh, we're fine. What? We're good. Look. You know, don't hide the bruise. You know, we're fine. We're good. Go away. You know, and but that's the kind of craziness that this drama triangle perpetrates. But this can go around and around and around. And what's true about this drama triangle is that there's nobody in this equation is carrying their responsibilities alone. Okay? There's no boundaries in this thing. Everybody's reaching into somebody else's business or letting others reach in and take care of their business that they should be taking care of. So it's a boundaryless cycle, and it's enmeshed. Families who have this going on in the family system there's no clear line between one family member and another, between the relationships, the brother-sister relationships, the parent-child relationships. Often they're reversed. Hats change. There's no ownership of a place in the relationship system, and that creates a craziness that can almost be addictive. It gets adrenaline going. It's like an addict. Hey, if there's not a crisis every 30 days, I'm going to die. I got to create one, okay? Because to feel normal. So there's a lot about this that's very unhealthy. It's self-perpetuating, and a lot of times we'll get couples who are engaged in this kind of cycle, looking for help and needing help, and being able to recognize how this operates will help us as facilitators, provide helpful help for them, and not get sucked into just becoming one of the parties of this in the cycle. So thoughts about this? Makes sense? What do you think?
Yeah, I grew up in a smaller family, but there was just 3 of us, and I'm the middle kid, so it's never supposed to be normal, they say, and Freud or some goofy person like that. But my father was what they then called manic depressive. He got out of the service, and his he was drafted. His brother enlisted, so my folks are greatest generation, and so I can see this. And then I attended faithfully Al-Anon when I went through my own breakup. I can see this family dynamic in the neighborhood where I live. There's many families I'm very fond of. There's a lot of, I speak a little bit of Spanish. There's Latino families. There's, families from a lot of different backgrounds, which I like. But I can see this dynamic happening. When I first lived where I lived, there was a couple not below me in my apartment, but below me and one over. And they would scream. And then the police came and they would do this changing hat thing. Mm-hmm. And that's an ugly dynamic. And I can, I've seen that a little bit in my own family. My dad didn't drink, but, and most of the abuse was emotional, because he didn't drink. We knew, but my mother referred to it as his mad spells because it's a Jekyll and Hyde. And, I realized how much he loved me, but there was times, in my coming of age that I just wanted to just kill him, because he would take out his anger and the difficult things going on within himself. He'd take it out on my mother, screaming bloody murder, and or on the animals. We had a dog, cat, whatever. So, and he didn't, like I said, he didn't drink, but I've seen this family dynamic. Mm-hmm. I've seen this family dynamic, and it's like, let's get out of this. I almost had him he almost went to an Al-Anon meeting with me. Said he was going to, but got to be Friday evening at 6 o'clock, and he was like, oh, I'm not going. That's all I have to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Ann.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think when I look at this, the key point is there's got to be 3 people. Mm-hmm. So if you have a husband, a wife, and a child who's acting out, one corrects them, the other's a rescuer, you get the drama triangle. Mm-hmm. You have this in families where somebody's a behavior problem in the family, and then somebody's going to rescue them or, correct the thing, and then they become the perpetrators. So it always takes 3 people. So if you just let the 2 people duke it out themselves, you get out of this drama triangle, but it's always the third person. Mm-hmm. Don't empower the person, that talks to you to go back and deal with it. Don't get involved.
Yeah. The facilitator role is one that doesn't take on any responsibility for either of the 2.
Good
right?
point. Mm-hmm.
It's you're facilitating something for them and allowing them to take ownership and come up with answers and walk through it. You're creating space, really, and that's a very different thing than becoming one of the characters in that role.
I think people see something as stuck, and so they want to be the rescuer and knock the pins down, but it doesn't work.
Yeah. Good point.
Can't you see how happy we are?
Just because they're on cloud number 9 doesn't mean everybody's on cloud number 9 with them.
You're too hard on my son.
Oh, isn't that cute?
You're too hard on my daughter.
Oh, it's wonderful.
How do we talk about it?
That bike is sexy. Growing up, I was living a lie. In the darkness, I was scared of the light. With no direction, I was running away. I tried to cover that I'm losing my mind. Now it's over. I wonder, yeah. A new beginning, it's a new way of life. Another chapter, why not give it a try? This hopeful journey needs an open mind to discover the treasure inside. Now I'm the clouds are running away. I can see the colors every day. Walked away from the fire, and now I'm living in grace. You never know the world until you open your eyes. Never see the truth until you look past the lies. Mother Nature is waiting for you to arrive. Step by side, step by side. Enjoy the ride. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do, do, do. La, 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 la. Enjoy the ride.
So Michelle is going to leave us with the Family Innocence theme song. We know it's going to be catching on everywhere. So take it away, Michelle.
And I won't have my husband Tom sing with me this time.
Or me.
You guys are all blessed.
Okay. Camera. Start spreading the bird, beginning today. We want to be no part of it, the family court. The bird is the word. It's flying away to make a brand new start of it. No family court. We want to wake up in a household where we can sleep instead of fearing a judge ready to peep. These family court blows are melting away. We will get to the heart of it with no delay. If we can do it here, we'll do it. Everywhere, no family court, no family court. One more line. If it is not a crime, we are not doing time in family court. No family court.